reach out to us. Also, we do have somewhat of an agenda, but if you do have questions as we go along, very specific to your needs, feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll keep an eye out and make sure that we answer them. So I'll introduce myself formally. My name is Calvin Monroe. I am the Student Engagement and Academic Success Coach for transfer students. So every enrolled student at St. Mary's gets a C's coach, right? And as a C's coach, we are essentially your point of contact for anything you may need on campus, right? And so as your C's coach, we would meet at minimum twice a semester just to make sure everything is okay, learn about your goals and your ambitions and make a plan to help you get there. But at maximum, we can meet once a week, right? So if you're the kind of person that needs someone to constantly talk to or brainstorm with, you're gonna have a C's coach here for that. The beautiful part about C's coaching is that we're holistic, meaning we can talk about academics, health, COVID, relationships, transferring, grad school, anything pretty much. And so that is my role here at St. Mary's. And now I'm going to introduce by name and allow them to share some of their information of our panelists. So we'll start with Sean because he's first to my left. So Sean, can you just share your name, your year, major, why you chose your major, future career goal, and perhaps something about St. Mary's that drew you here?
Yeah, so hello, my name is Sean. I'm a senior this year. I'm a psychology major, general emphasis, and creative writing minor. I chose the major because when I was in high school, I kind of struggled with some mental health, kind of anxiety, and kind of therapy really helped me through it. So I thought really learning about kind of the theory behind it would be really interesting. In my future careers, I hope to go into education as probably around a high school level teacher.
And what drew you to St. Mary's initially? What made you apply and come to St. Mary's?
Yeah, so I had a couple of cousins that went here before, and I heard really good things from them. I really liked the idea of small class sizes and also the master's in education program afterwards was appealing as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean. Let's go to AWG, Alex Walker Griffin. Same questions, and you can answer however you like.
Okay, thank you. My name is Alex Walker Griffin. I'm a senior here at St. Mary's. My major is politics. Everywhere else is known as political science. Why I chose St. Mary's was because I came from Contra Costa College, and I really like the idea of having small classes again. I feel like that really allowed me to connect with my professors back at CCC. And my future career ambitions, I'd like to stay in politics. I'm a member of the Hercules City Council right now, so hopefully somewhere down the road, an opportunity will come up to run for Congress. So,
All right, very cool. Just real quick, going back to Sean, can you tell us where you transferred from? I forgot to ask you that.
Yeah, I transferred from DVC, Diablo Valley College in Pleasant Hill.
All right, we have Molly Schmidt. She's a member of the Transfer Student Club. Same questions. Let me know if you don't remember them.
Hi, my name is Molly Schmidt. I am currently a junior here at St. Mary's. I'm an English major with a minor in law and society. My future goal and career as of right now is I want to go to law school and become a lawyer or an attorney. I transferred from De Anza Community College, and I also chose St. Mary's because, like Sean and Alex, I really like the small class sizes and really getting that deeper connection with my professors and that one-on-one attention.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so we're gonna break this up loosely into sections. The first section is gonna be your transfer experience, so we'll ask some questions about that when you first came in. The second section is academics, academic-based questions. Third is social life, which is gonna be interesting due to COVID, but nonetheless, you all are still transfer students. And I see at least 2 of you are living on campus, so we can get your perspective. And part 4 is how you've been as a St. Mary's student during COVID. And of course, for those in the audience, you can ask any questions at any time in the chat. So I'm just gonna list a few questions all at once and you all can just jump in if you feel compelled. So Your transfer experience. So what was your transfer experience like from the college you came from to St. Mary's, meaning your first day, your first few weeks? Did all of your classes transfer over? Did you feel welcome here? And how did you first make friends? So you can answer any or all of those, and I'll open it up to whoever wants to share.
I don't mind going first. My experience was rather smooth. I was actually really surprised by the turnaround from my application to the acceptance and then everything that came with it. It was rather fast. It was less than 10 days, I would imagine. Yeah, less than 10 days. And when I got to campus, my advisor, Dr. Longo, as soon as I came through, actually, as soon as I stepped on campus, she said, "Hey, Alex," I had no idea what she looked like, no idea who she even was, but somehow she knew who I was. So that was a pretty unique experience and something that I'll definitely never forget. And once I got to campus, the campus life was kind of similar to Contra Costa College. I feel like it was sort of a commuter sort of experience, especially since most of my classes had transfer students. So it wasn't too difficult making friends since a lot of us lived off campus and we could resonate with some of the issues that we may have dealt with.
Thank you.
Um, my transfer experience was a little rough. My first week, I had a hard time kind of figuring out where all my classes were and kind of just meeting people. However, through I met like a few friends in classes and also going to like club events, and just kind of putting myself out there to meet people. So I really kind of just got a better perspective as the weeks went on. Um, some of all of my classes basically transferred over except for my second language courses, so that was a good thing. um, and as a transfer student at St. Mary's, I felt really welcomed and I really enjoyed the tight-knit community that I saw around me, and it just felt like a great atmosphere, and I felt like I did make the great choice of transferring.
All right, thanks for that. Sean, do you have anything?
Yeah. So my transfer experience was fairly smooth overall. Most of my credits transferred, although some in different ways. So for example, I took a stage makeup class, which didn't transfer as a stage makeup class, but as kind of something a little bit different, but I got credits for it. Um, I would say with friends, I kind of got them from a mix of kind of transferred classes. There's a couple, like I took a specifically an English and seminar class specific for transfers. So I met a lot of people there and then also in various clubs. And I guess one piece of advice I'd recommend for that if clubs interest you is usually in the first 2 weeks or so, there's a club fair, which I'd recommend going to a lot. That's where kind of I met a lot of people and really started making connections on campus. Yeah, but between kind of all those things and like particularly the clubs and kind of fellow students, I felt pretty welcome coming in.
Good. Let me ask a question just on the spot now. Thinking back to maybe your last few semesters at your previous institution, what advice would you give prospective students who are still there, whether that's academics or credits or reaching out to Craig or reaching out to St. Mary's officials? Any advice that you would give someone that hasn't yet made the full transition yet, how to prepare for a more smooth transition?
I would definitely say try to figure out where all the buildings are and try to figure out where your classes are because I thought Dante Hall was a person my first day at St. Mary's. And so I was like, oh, I got classes all day with this guy. And it turns out that it was a building. And then also ask your advisor what classes will transfer over and just so you have a clear timeline of when your graduation is because some of the classes like TRS are going to come up kind of by surprise. At least they were for me. I never had to experience a religious class. So that kind of made me feel like I kind of had a wrench thrown in there, but ask all the questions that are floating in the back of your head because most people are pretty open to answer them.
Yeah, one thing with that too is one thing that I would recommend when you meet with your advisor is, depending on your graduation plan, also ask about summer classes. I've done a couple and they've really kind of helped relieve some of the stress, getting kind of some of the more tough ones out when it's just that rather than have to deal with 3 other at a time. So I would recommend just kind of looking at that as well.
I wanted to, oh, go ahead, Craig.
I was gonna say, okay, if I ask a question to the panelists?
Yeah, can you hold the question? I wanted to introduce
Absolutely.
Daniel Nguyen. Daniel Nguyen is a member of the Transfer Student Club as well, current St. Mary's student. So I wanted to introduce him before you ask that question, Craig, so we can jump back in. So real quick, Daniel, can you let us know well, we know your name, your year, your major, why you chose this major, and a future career goal, and why you chose St. Mary's initially?
Yeah, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Daniel Nguyen. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a 4th-year student at St. Mary's. I'm studying business administration with a concentration in finance. You know, I've always been more of an introvert person, so I really like reading and looking at data like statistics, analytics, etc. And then part of the reason I chose St. Mary's is because I had an older sister who came here, and she was, you know, telling me about how she liked the community, the enclosed space. You know, like if you are at St. Mary's right now on campus, as you know, we are in a very secluded area in some capacity. So it is like our, you know, the campus environment feels like, you know, like sacred ground to a point where we, you know, it's our own getaway place, you know, from like society and such. And is there anything else you want me to talk about, Calvin? Or
Yeah, why you initially chose to come to St. Mary's? Oh, where you transferred from and why you chose St. Mary's?
Yeah, so I transferred from Evergreen Valley College down in San Jose, and I chose St. Mary's just for the community and small environment. I was able to build good quality relationships with friends and professors, as opposed to go to like a big impacted school where I'm just another face.
All right, thank you. All right, Craig, feel free to ask your question.
Okay, great. Yeah, so one of the reasons I asked this question is I think it'd be useful and helpful for any new students that are in here, but also since all of the current panelists are from community colleges, this is a question I get oftentimes, and I think you guys are better equipped to answer this. I get questions a lot that ask, you know, what are my expectations of the level of work expectations coming from the community college to the 4-year system? And, you know, I answer it sometimes, but like I said, I think you guys are better equipped to do that because I think that's a very useful question for the students who are here.
So yeah, with that question, that's good segue. We'll go into the second section, which is academics. So in regards to that, let's stick with that question right there before I ask others within that. So what was your course load like? So you're at a community college, you transfer, so clearly you did well at the community college. Now, when you got to St. Mary's, how did you feel about the course load, the reading load? Was it a surprise? Did you transition well? So just share generally what that transition was like.
I think for me, what was really surprising is the way that the credits are added up. For example, at my community college, I was taking from 17 to 20 credits. And then when I transferred to St. Mary's, I realized that each class was worth 1 credit each. And that was a real surprise to me. I noticed that some of my classes were a little bit harder than others, and the reading lists were a little bit longer. And it was kind of hard to differentiate which were harder classes and which ones were easier based on the credit scoring system here at St. Mary's. But as time went on, I kind of was able to just kind of split all of my course load up in an easy way as I did at my community college.
I want to stay there just for 1 second. What do you mean split your coursework up? What do you mean by that?
I was able to like prioritize it as prioritize it. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else? Your academic transition, workload, etc.
When I got here, the first thing I noticed was the amount of reading, and that was like, I mean, coming from political science at CCC, it wasn't like we weren't reading prior to this, but the amount of reading at St. Mary's was like kind of through the roof. When I remember when I got my first syllabus and I saw all the books that we had to read, I was like, holy cow! And then you add on the other classes like TRS, I was stressing out. Like, I don't know anything about the Bible. How am I going to pass this class? I don't know anything about these certain stories. But other than that, like, the professors made it really clear on what their intention was, and they were really flexible, especially when it came to that TRS class, which I was freaking out about because I just knew that there was no way I was going to do good, because a lot of my friends came from Catholic schools and knew what they were talking about. I had no idea what they were talking about. But other than that, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what's been said. It's definitely on average. It obviously depends on the class. Some are easier and others are harder, but on average, I would say the workload is heavier per class than at community college. But one thing that I really noticed, especially my first semester, is just being open with teachers. If you, on the first day, say you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, just kind of explain to them, and oftentimes they can kind of help talk you through kind of a plan or something like that. So.
All right. So staying with academics, I'll ask 2 or 3 questions all at once, and you all can pick up whichever one you resonate with. So, do you work? Like, do you have employment outside of St. Mary's? If so, how do you balance this heavier workload with work? What was your hardest course so far at St. Mary's? What are the professors like? Both the good and maybe the not so good. And how long would you recommend like new students study at St. Mary's? So any one of those we can go into, where you could choose to answer.
So I don't currently work. However, I do work on campus. I work with student involvement and leadership. So I'm currently working online. And so far, that's been really easy to balance school and classes because my class schedule is, or my work schedule is based around my class schedule. Um, but that's been pretty good so far. I don't have a full-time job yet, but I'm looking. My hardest class so far has probably been my political science class. Um, it was online through Zoom, and it just was a lot harder than I anticipated. But I made it through and just worked through it and just kept up with the work and asked the professor for help. Um, I've had really good professors so far. They've all helped me with anything and everything that I've needed. I've noticed that some professors are more organized than others, and the more organized ones help me a little bit better than the ones that aren't, but I don't have a bad thing to say about any of my professors so far. And I study usually around 4 hours every night or more. It just depends on which class it is.
Yeah, I don't currently work, although I am kind of involved with a number of clubs on leadership teams. And with those, it kind of is hard to, if that interests any of you, the scheduling isn't too intense. However, you do have to make sure that you do have some extra time pretty much every day in case something does come up. My hardest class so far was probably psychobiology, which is a 2-part. So we had a lecture 3 days a week and a lab 1 day a week. And it being online in particular made it more challenging. But with that one, essentially, my strategy was just study, make sure that you don't fall behind. And that's one of the biggest kind of pieces of advice I'd offer for just about any class is make sure you don't fall behind. If you don't understand something, don't kind of just push it off and say, I'll figure it out later, because, you'll kind of fall behind even more than fairly quickly. My professors, I've not really had any negative experiences. I've loved all my teachers. They've been very understanding, very kind of accommodating, very nice, very fair. Um, and how long would I recommend studying? It really depends on the semester for me. I know last semester when I was taking psychobiology, it was probably about 4 hours a day, but um, others maybe like 2 or 3, kind of depending on the week and the course load that you're taking.
I do work. I've worked basically my entire time at St. Mary's. So when I first came to St. Mary's, I was working for a public affairs firm in San Francisco. So I'd leave class, drive to San Francisco, and then I drive home. And on top of that, I was still sitting on the state's community college board at the time. And at the time when I was on the board of governors, we were designing Calbright College, which is the nation's first 100% online community college. So when I would hop out of class, I'd immediately rush over to some place where I can hop on my laptop and start getting on phone calls, whatever the case may be, and then drive over to San Francisco while still being on a phone call. And so I wouldn't get home till maybe like 7 o'clock at night. So on average, I was probably studying anywhere 3 to 4 hours a day. So the day would finally be over around like midnight. So the best thing that I would say for that is to have a calendar that just sends you notifications about when things are coming up. And, when I'd explain to my professors like the situation that I'm in, I'm like, hey, professor, I might be a little late with this. It's going to sound kind of random, but I'm meeting with someone from the governor's office later today. Um, Usually, most of the time, professors are understanding because they realize too that there's going to be a point where you leave St. Mary's and it's your professional life that's going to take place. And St. Mary's is just it's a benchmark in your life, yes, but it's not going to be the entire thing that you should just solely be focused on. And that's one thing that I appreciate about my professors. And the hardest class, I keep saying it, is that TRS class. I felt like the biggest idiot in that class when my friends were bringing up different sections of the Bible and parts that I've never even heard of in my entire life, and me trying to keep up. And then when I spoke to my professor about the issues and the background that I came from at CCC, she was really accommodating and easy to get along with and make sort of a lesson plan to help me out.
Daniel, do you have any contributions to the academic portion of your now 4 years at the college or your senior status at the college?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I think as you continue on, the workload starts to pile. I mean, that that transition from lower division to upper division is a little difference in there. And I think for the most part, in terms of academics, I have not had any complaints, not at all, in terms of the curriculum and the accommodations. They're all really great, and the professors really do understand where we're coming from. I mean, especially now since we're living in a pandemic. The like being on our computers 24/7, they know that it takes a toll on you. So and don't be afraid to and ask for like help or an extension, because we're really like trying to get through this and together. And and in the end, professors are just looking out for your best interest, and they just want you to succeed. I think a revelation I had was that like I try my best. Like I think for a long time I try my best to stay away from all like the hard professors and such, because I didn't really want to. I just wanted like a quote unquote easy A and such. But I know, but there are some professors that will let you cruise by, and some who are really hard on you. And what I've come to realize is that the ones that are hard on you are the ones that care about you the most, because they are the ones that are going to push you to succeed and and hold you accountable. So because once we leave college, it's like we're just thrown out into the to the real world, and now we just have to like take what we learn and apply it to the best of our abilities.
So I have one more question on academics, and if Craig and Memphis have anything that would be appropriate for based on academics, you can ask that as well. But since we asked about what was your hardest class, I think it's appropriate to ask, what was your best class? What class did you enjoy the most? Or your best professor, and why did you enjoy that class and or professor the most at St. Mary's?
Oh, I guess I didn't answer that first question. I would say my hardest class was probably TRS. My professor is like, you know, he covers all the TRS major and core requirements. So he's a, you know, and like, yeah, so it was really hard. And then to follow up, I think the best class I had was probably my finance class. I mean, my professor was really dull and boring, but I know we had a great connection. I put in a lot. You know, I did a lot of work, and I'm currently doing a remote internship under him for the past 6 months. So I mean, it's not. I guess it really isn't about, you know, the class. You know, in my opinion, it's really about, you know, the professor that teaches it, because, you know, he or she can turn like a class or subject from something you disliked at first into something you come to enjoy towards the end. And that was my um, and that was my deduction. And, you know, when I think about, you know, the best class I had in terms of the relationships, the content, and just this like transition from like in person to online, because it happened in spring when we had to like make that jump.
Yeah, anyone else? Your best class, best professor, what impact it had on you? Why it was your best class?
My best professors, it's a tie between Dr. Longo and Dr. Weissman, because they're always really passionate about whatever they're talking about. And, you know, I'm a politician, so I like to talk myself. So that really made the class all the more better. And when I was at CCC, the majority of people in your political science classes weren't political science majors. So when I got to St. Mary's, it was the first time that I was really around a majority of the people that had the same sort of life goals and intentions that I do. So we all basically fed off one another's energy and what we had to say. And so every time I had a class, I actually looked forward to it. And it's kind of ironic that it would be the first time I ever missed a class, and was looking forward to it, as opposed to some people who don't get excited for it. So professors certainly do make or break your experience, and overall understanding, you know, like the circumstances that I'm in with the stuff that I'm involved with and the stuff that I do. Most professors tend to be like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, this is kind of the situation. But their understanding has made everything all the more smooth.
I think my best class so far at St. Mary's has been English 163 Anglophone Literature with Sunyani Bhattacharya. I also really enjoyed Janine King, who taught English 19 last spring. Both of those professors really helped me in essay writing and were just always there when I needed help. I really enjoyed how they laid out their class. It was very engaging with a lot of in class discussion about what we were reading and a lot of background of the books and other things that we were learning. So it was very engaging and very, very good classes.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of hard to choose one. I would say my favorite overall, because of all the factors, would probably be my creative writing fiction class with Professor Graham. I really enjoyed kind of the layout of the class. It was very much built on kind of follow your own kind of creative endeavors rather than just, you know, prompt after prompt. But I think it really helped me kind of grow as a writer, just because we were able to do a lot of workshops and kind of talk through our own kind of interests in work. And I love the people in the class, the teacher, everything.
All right. Craig or Memphis, any academic questions you might find appropriate for the panel at this moment?
Actually, I do now that I think about it, because since the two students that are in here that will be coming will probably be taking it their first semester. How about collegiate seminar? What was your experience like with the transfer collegiate seminar?
Oh, sorry. Or I really enjoyed it, actually. I made a lot of my first semester, I took seminar 102, which is the transfer one. I enjoyed the text, but I also it provided a really good kind of place for me to socialize and meet people. Given that it's very kind of group, kind of a social class because you're talking almost the entire time, it's a great way to kind of meet new people and interact and kind of talk about like your own relationship with kind of the text and compare it to others. So that was a great way to actually really initiate me into the community, I think. So I had a good experience with it.
For me, seminar was a very different class. I had never taken a class where you sat in a circle and talked about a text that you had read in like deeper sense, but it really helped me meet people. It also helped me within my major. As an English major, we do a lot of reading texts and talking about it. So it really helped me be able to read a text and then be able to talk about it in an open and a deeper conversation with people. It also pushed me out of my comfort zone because I'm also a very introverted person and have a hard time kind of speaking up in class. So it really pushed me to be able to speak up in class and share my ideas with others.
Yeah, I like the class because it was basically the first time, like you tell me I have to read this and we're just going to discuss it. The pretty low stakes class, everybody's pretty easygoing. That was my jive, especially because a lot of the text focused around social justice, which I'm super big on. It was all the more exciting to talk about it, make my neck hair stand up. And seeing other people get passionate and talking about topics that maybe some of us have never talked about in our lives, or even read texts that quite frankly we didn't know about. There was one text talking about shapes and how they related to our life, and hearing everyone kind of mutually discuss how that text was stressful was enjoyable.
Lucky for me, my older sister went to St. Mary's, so before I left, she gave me the whole spiel about what the class is like and what to expect. So I had a general idea of coming in, and it really, the way I can summarize it is, you're gonna be put in a room full of very opinionated people, and you are gonna talk about things that you're not comfortable with but need to be addressed because like with what happened last Wednesday, it's going to be something that these kind of like these historic events is going to like be the foundation of your conversations and when you are in seminar, because a lot of people will feel passionate like Alex was saying, or it resonates with you, and it's going to create it's going to it's going to create a sacred space where we need to just address and talk, like about the book and how it relates to how we live right now. And in my experience, I had great professors, and you just hope that you find the best about you just hope that you have the like how do I describe it? Just you just hope that you have people with very different views, because with more diversity means more clarity.
You got something, Memphis?
Yeah, I was going to say I would actually be interested to hear their experiences on Jan term also.
I personally love Jan term. I think that's one of my favorite things about St. Mary's. So we're in Jan term right now, and I'm taking short story writing as my main credit with Professor Graham, actually, and Wines of the World, which is a quarter credit. But I just really love kind of getting that opportunity to just take a month kind of break and just pick something kind of more obscure or random that you're interested in, and just really kind of focus on pursuing that, not really having to worry about, how this applies to like my graduation schedule, just taking that time to just really enjoy kind of learning about something new that interests you. So like, because I took those, and then also a Rise of Nerd Culture class, and a fencing class. So all of those were kind of things that I really enjoyed learning about.
For sake of time, we'll do two others to share their Jan term experience. before we
I can go next. For those, the purpose of Jan term is to, kind of expand your horizons, broaden her horizons, and to, the way I interpret it is that it's a month to pretty much get away from your focus of studies and to just do something like fun or do something out of your comfort zone and such. I mean, with this year's Jan term, the options are not as great, partly because of COVID. I know that before COVID, there were more intriguing classes with the addition of being able to study abroad for an entire month. And last year, and for me, I wanted to spend my Jan term fulfilling one of the general requirements, and and then Jan term will have some classes that will meet general ed requirements, so you can get ahead and such. Right now, I'm taking real estate and investment finance. I know it goes against what I said about staying away from your major, but as I said, the choices of classes this year were not as intriguing or as exciting as last year. But I just thought but my thought process was that I go into just to do something, just to help set myself up for the future and such. And then last year I did a class called the LaSalle Service Internship. So it's a class connected to the MMC, and what it is that you have to apply, interview, and hopefully get into the class. So it's not like you can register through PL Express. So the registration and getting in the class is a completely separate matter. And and then you have to give up. I had to give up some Fridays to attend fall preparatory classes. That meets the requirement, and then after that, you pretty much decide on a site that you want to go to, and as I said, the hours will vary. So I went to an elementary school called Demariac Academy in San Francisco, and believe it or not, like I had to work from 9 to 5, and that's not the worst part. I mean, the kids are actually in school from 8 to 5, so I know. So think about being in school for about over 8 or 9 hours a day, and for the most part, I mean, during the time of Jan term, it's really relaxing because you only have one class, and then after that, you have the entire day to yourselves traditionally. But for me, like, I had to get up early, and then after I was done, I just wanted to just recover and get ready for the next day. But I really encourage you all to do something fun out of your comfort zone, because that's really what the month is about. And then because after that we go back into spring, we go into spring semester and get back to our studies. But for sure, I mean, you take the class, and then for the most part, you have the entire day to yourself. So it's really a relaxing time, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to share briefly about Jan term experience? All right, so let's shift gears. We've talked about what it's like first coming to St. Mary's, transferring in. We've talked about the academic side. We're going to move to social life, which we know already is different now. So because you all were here pre-COVID, we want you to describe what it was like regular St. Mary's without COVID. So describe what it was like when you first got here, because we eventually will get there one day. And describe maybe how it is now, and perhaps, well, let me just share some of the questions. So when you do answer, perhaps share both sides. How would you describe social life at St. Mary's, good and not good? What clubs are available? What clubs are you involved in? But also with social life, did you commute to campus? And what are some tips? Well, matter of fact, we'll scratch that one right now, because right now we're, everyone isn't on living on campus, and we're not doing the commute. And perhaps how are sporting events? So I'll put these questions in the chat. You can answer one or a few of them. But yeah, let's jump into social life pre-COVID and now during COVID. How are you staying involved?
For me, I told myself that I wasn't joining anything because when I came from CCC, I was student body president and I was president of the club too. So I was like, I'm burnt out with joining stuff. So when I came to St. Mary's, kind of laid pretty low profile. But because I'm also in the military, somehow all the military folks, I somehow seem to just stumble across. Like it was just because something really random. I'd recognize a backpack and I'd ask, "Hey, where'd you get that from?" And that's how I started making friends. And also too, through the politics department and some of my classes, usually because the transfer community, that's how I made friends too. So the social life, since the majority of the transfers tend to be from the area, if we were to link up, we'd all go to something mutual or we'd hang out during our time on campus. So it wasn't that bad, but because St. Mary's is kind of isolated if you don't have a car, there were some downsides to it. But overall, going to the different events and getting to meet people was kind of how you made the most of your social life. And now with COVID and all the restrictions that we have now, the majority of the people that I still talk to on campus or that are at St. Mary's are people that I met during my time there. So it's been really helpful, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Molly.
So before I transferred to St. Mary's, I went on the website and looked up all the clubs that were on campus, and I kind of looked at what was of interest to me. And so when I got to campus, I believe it was the first week I was here, they had the involvement fair where they had all the clubs come and talk about who they were and what they did. And so I was able to kind of go around to the clubs that I had saw online and pick and choose what sounded interesting and what didn't, but also kind of get to see um, more clubs that I wasn't able to see online. Um, so I so I was able to get involved on campus by that aspect, but since then I've become the vice president of the law club, the co-president of the transfer club, and I am also working within student involvement and leadership. So I've been able to oversee the clubs that are on campus as well as get to know people. So I kind of have an idea of what's going on. And so I was able to meet people through the clubs that I am currently in, but also the clubs that I was able to talk to. Yeah.
I just want to stay with Molly for just a second, since you are involved in so much. Most important, well, in this case, most importantly, co-president of Transfer Club. How do you, so you're involved, you're still involved clearly, right? So how do you motivate yourself to still be involved even though there are COVID restrictions right now?
So it is a little bit difficult, but just by contacting my peers, my exec teams, and just kind of reaching out and saying, "Hi, how are you?" Like just kind of that reach out just to make sure we're all kind of on the same page of wanting to do things and making sure that we're kind of fitting things in, even though it is a difficult time. So just kind of like scheduling things out that work around everybody's schedule and just making sure that we are staying connected no matter what.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So in terms of social life, St. Mary's is a very small school, and right now there's not a lot of like life out there. But in terms of like before COVID, I know that CAB, the Campus Activities Board, we put on a bunch of weekly events for everyone to come around and and specifically for us transfer students. I know Calvin and a bunch of the SMC staff put on some events to get us to meet with each other, and some of my best friends, I did meet some of my best friends through that, and we still talk to this day. What's really interesting is where we're located. I mean, we're located like in the middle between we're like in the middle point between like San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley. So a lot of the time, SFC students would just go out, take like drive or take part, and just go explore the city. And it's really easy. You don't have to, you don't really have to drive up to avoid you can avoid the traffic by just taking public transportation. In terms of clubs, yeah, I'm on the board with Molly and other transfer and the other transfer exec teams.
Questions on Parker.
And I'm currently a panelist for the Pure Conduct Council for Office of Community Life.
The employer would pay you, or what does that mean?
Really, we're designed to help. Designed to help foster the community aspect here at St. Mary's.
So you can see it varies in terms.
You see a lot of St. Mary's students throughout the morning and afternoon, and then I think after like 2 or 3 p.m., the camp people either go back to their dorm, study, or leave campus. If you live off campus, if you live off campus, you go back to your apartment and such. So
in terms of
like the social aspect, a lot of it is towards like the morning and early afternoons. I'm currently involved in 2 clubs, Alpasa and InterVarsity. It's not easy. It's not really, it hasn't been easy being on Zoom and meeting, but one thing you have to learn is that, we have to, I think, you need to see your friends, whether, I think it's a good morale boost, and it's the kind of balance you need to kind of get through this pandemic. I know this isn't the ideal situation being on Zoom right now. Like Zoom, I guarantee you when this is all over, we're gonna like stay away from Zoom for like probably a couple years. But but one thing we need to see clearly is that we're all here for a reason. We're not alone in this, and we're all feeling the same way.
Like a workshop
and
for it.
I'm not on campus right now, so I can't attest to what life is like up there. But I know Sean and Molly can. So I'll leave it at that.
Just real quick, next time you answer, turn your background noise down a little bit. It was you were competing with it. Sean, give you an opportunity. What is your social life for you before COVID and now during?
Yeah, so when I first came here, I got involved in a lot of clubs, pretty much across the board. There's a lot that are offered that pretty much fit just about every interest. There's like Gale Gaming and kind of like a board game role-playing club. But right now, the things that I'm currently on the exec team for Pride and International Club. Both of them are still holding events, even in COVID. Before, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that like this year hasn't been as good as last one, because being able to do kind of in-person club meetings, kind of go on like trips, do things with like Campus Activity Board and RHA, I always enjoyed. But even now, clubs are still meeting online. I know Pride, we try and meet like every 2 weeks or so. A lot of people have started just doing online kind of games, like Jackbox has become pretty popular for a lot of people on campus. So even though we're in kind of COVID times, it's still possible to kind of find groups and like just do casual kind of things fairly frequently. But yeah, like in terms of getting involved and making friends, for me, it was pretty much clubs. So I would recommend going to the involvement fair again. It doesn't hurt to stop by a club meeting. You never know what will interest you, who you'll meet. I know with me, I've made some of my best friends in places that when I transferred in, I never would have thought. So I would my biggest piece of advice with that is like keep an open mind. Just because something on the surface might seem a little uncomfortable or not interesting, you really never know what you'll find.
All right, so we have 7 minutes. Well, now we have 6 minutes left. So this last section is about COVID. So just in general, because I do want to give Craig and Memphis maybe a last word before we all leave the room, but in COVID, so as a transfer student, how do you study online? What are some tips you can give to a prospective student? How do you stay in touch with people from campus that maybe you don't see every day now? And maybe what is some advice you would give a prospective student on how to survive St. Mary's during COVID? So you can answer one or briefly several of those questions before we wrap up.
To stay in touch easily, the power of social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, whatever you prefer. And then studying, taking notes, and then making sure that you take time away from Zoom, because 4 hours in Zoom is exhausting, especially if you have stuff throughout the remainder of the day. So make sure that you find time to do an activity that you enjoy, and still try to keep some level of normality in your life. So that way you don't become overwhelmed with Zoom, because it's hard to have Zoom and then you're being at home, you're sanctioned, where you sanctuary, just to come back and do your homework later. So find an activity, find some friends that you're close with, and get in touch with them and see what they're up to, and just make sure that you still feel sane and your mental health is okay.
Sorry. Kind of going off of that, yeah, just making sure you're reaching out to people, even if you haven't heard from them in a while. Just kind of a small hey goes a long way. I've talked to some people that I haven't talked to in a long while since COVID started, just with the small hi, how are you doing? So just making sure to keep in touch no matter what, because everybody's going through something during this tough time. And then also study tips, just make sure you're actively engaged, taking notes, as Alex said, and also taking breaks for sure.
Calvin, what was the question? Sorry.
So as briefly as you possibly can, because we have 4 minutes, as a transfer student, how have you studied during COVID? What tips would you give to a prospective student on studying? And how do you stay in touch with people from campus if you don't see them every day anymore?
Okay, so going off that, you know, hope try your best to maybe take some class, get you and your friend to take a class together. Whoever you befriend, whoever you know, it'll be nice to have a buddy in there to see and look forward to as time goes on. And I think after what spring semester, I couldn't stand looking at my screen. I started hating my laptop. So one thing I would invest in is what I've seen with a lot of people is that they are like investing in like new monitors and adapters to your for technology's sakes. So right now, I don't know if you can see the back of my mirror, but I have like three monitors set up, and I have a laptop stand, to to take the stress off just looking straight down and such. So I know not everyone has that luxury, but I think like different pace and different kind of scenery would be great as well. I'll spend some time going here, and then and then I know I don't know what's like up in campus and such, but but the good thing about staying home is that you kind of have the freedom to go out when you want, like in safe conditions. So really try your best to find places to study, to keep the day interesting and such. And as Molly and Sean, Alex will say, just find something you like doing. For me, I mean, or I know some things that we like to do, we can't because of COVID. So try something else to do. And I'll leave it at that.
All right, thanks. Sean, what do you think? How have you survived this COVID restrictions and with studying? And what advice would you give to some prospective students?
Yeah. So I suppose like my main piece of advice would be make a schedule. When you're kind of in the same, in my case, room almost all day, every day for like weeks, it can be kind of easy to just slide into doing nothing and get in a pattern of really just nothingness. So I try and make a schedule of like, okay, every day from 5 to 7, I'm going to text people, or I'll play this game with this person, or like I set up a week in advance, I'm going to Zoom for blank amount of time with this person. Or I think that's also kind of ties in with academics. It's really important to kind of keep a schedule in there too. So like, even though it's easy to like wake up and just like hit the on button and like go onto Zoom without showering because you get to sleep in better, I found that like still going through kind of the morning routine is important with kind of my own mental health. So I would just advise kind of trying to plan out your week as much as possible with social, study, school, just maintain as much normalcy as possible. But also take time off to enjoy things too. Don't be completely structured. Just find that balance.
Well, thank you for all of that wisdom and insight. I know you're going to help a lot of new and prospective students. So now I just wanted to give maybe the final word to Craig and or Memphis, just to share just a little something about the panel and the prospective students.
A perfect transition. I guess I'll say it's nice to, with this particular event, to kind of be in the background instead of hosting the event. So it gives me a chance to, I'm actually beaming right now. I enjoy seeing all these students and hearing you guys, because we often say in admissions, you know, we hand the students off, so to speak, to student life. And we do see you, we do talk to you sometimes, but these are all the things that I love to hear about the transfer experience, you know, that we talk about and that I assume happen. And it's just reinforced with your guys' experience. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I thoroughly enjoyed your hearing about all your experiences, be they good or bad, or, you know, hard or frustrating at St. Mary's. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just, of course, would like to just echo, of course, what Craig has said, and also just add that, you know, just listening to all of you speak, I've learned so much, and just hearing your responses to the questions and how your experience has been, I think is going to definitely be helpful to me in my position to do a better job and to have more ideas to make your experience at St. Mary's better. And you know, I think that, you know, for those that will listen to this recording that are listening, I think that, you know, also allows them to see what their experience can be like, and you know, both the good and the bad, so they kind of will know what to expect. So again, you know, thank you for you know, taking the time to share with us today.
And thank you, Calvin, for the work that you do with the transfer students as well.
Yeah, no problem. I guess my last word is to those prospective students or those new transfer students that may be watching this later. You're looking at current students who are acknowledging that it's tough to be at St. Mary's during a pandemic, but these students are still reaching forward for their goals. They're sacrificing, they're doing self-care, and they're reaching their goals. So it can be done by anybody. So thank you all for attending. All the panelists, look out for an email from me. We got some good swag for you for helping out the prospective students. And with that, I hope you all have a good day and good evening.